And, this is intimidating, all of you, and I can't believe there's another set of you outside. But that, to me, just shows the community engagement and the importance of all of this. And I was reflecting on today, and one of the first times I got to spend some time with Congresswoman Emily Randall was on a policy ride. I see Diane here. They took us on a bike ride through Gorst. I think that just demonstrates the commitment to our community and seeing firsthand the challenges and opportunities that we face. And for us, Emily grew up here, right here in Kitsap County. She lives in Bremerton. She's our girl, right? And everything the chaos that's going on at the federal level, to me it's comforting to know that we have a neighbor and a champion in Congress. So it is my pleasure, and please join me in welcoming Congresswoman Emily Randall.
Thank you all so much for being here. And I'm so grateful to Commissioner Walters for taking the time to come and welcome you all into the space. I'm grateful that you are all here and respectful of your neighbors, making sure that we leave always clear. I know that we all are hungry to participate in our democracy. I can see it in this crowd. And the 400 people that showed up in Tacoma yesterday, and the 16,000 people who are on our teletown hall over there. It's a really scary time. I just want to start and tell you that, every day I am sad and mad and feel an overwhelming sense of urgency and frustration. And, I get a lot of comments and emails and calls from folks asking if we feel as mad and scared and ready for change as you do. And I want to validate those feelings and tell you that we are here with you, that I feel those feelings too. I, knew that a Trump presidency was a possibility when I decided to run for Congress. It's one of the reasons that I thought it was so important that I raise my hand and offer my experience and service to our community to fight for the issues, our neighbors, the programs, the future that we all deserve. For the last 6 years in the state legislature, I've been really proud to work alongside so many of you to deliver real results for our neighbors, to expand healthcare access, to pass protections for LGBTQ folks, to defend our environment, to ensure that our schools are funded, and fight for better for all of us. And I will admit that there have been a number of meetings that I've been in with neighbors who've come to DC to lobby, who have questions, who have needs, who have asked for the budget or policy or programs. And there have been a couple of times when I have literally laid my head on the desk in the middle of the meeting, because the tools that we have right now are not the tools that I had when I was defending our community and fighting for us in the Washington State Senate. We don't have the same majorities, clearly. We don't have the same power. Not yet. Yes. That said, I have been trying to learn as fast as possible alongside my fellow freshmen and more seasoned members what procedural and constitutional tools exist to us that we are not currently using? We are talking to the Congressional Research Office, we are getting briefings, we are talking to attorneys inside of Congress and outside of Congress to try and figure out what unprecedented tools exist for us to fight back, to defend our democracy, to ensure that we have a future. There are lots of asks that we get and the many phone calls, and I'm just gonna say, I think in the first 3.5 weeks of February, we had 19,000 calls, emails, and messages from constituents. It's a higher volume than any other congressional offices. My staff has been checking. And I have 15 staff in between district and DC. There are times that they are all answering the phone almost all day long, which makes it difficult for us to do the other research and the work that we need to do. So I'm not saying don't call us. I want you to use your voices. I want you to stay engaged. But if sometimes we are slow to respond, sometimes you don't get a voicemail or call back after you leave a voicemail, sometimes it takes a little while for your email, know that we are working hard for you. And my team is working tirelessly to ensure that they're serving our community to the best of their abilities. The line of many of those calls is the true pain and anger and frustration and worry that we are all feeling. And folks who don't, I don't expect everyone to know all of the constitutional authorities that members of Congress are empowered with, the rules, the boundaries of what we can and can't do, of who answers to who, of how agencies work together. We are, it's I think a value of mine that we educate folks about what is possible. But we do get calls that say, why aren't you calling out the U.S. Marshal? Why aren't you calling out the Capitol Police? Why aren't you constantly getting arrested? Why aren't you doing X, Y, or Z thing? There's a lot of anger, and I feel it too. And I just want to say here that it is important to me, so that there is a democracy at the end of this fight for us to protect, that we follow the law, that we don't let their dismissal of what is legal, that their disregard for the rule of law become our disregard for the rule of law. So I know you are all being so flexible so that we can spend an hour with this group and then an hour with the next group. So I'm going to stop talking and we'll take questions. And where is Kate? Okay, James is in the back. And he's going to come around with a microphone to grab your questions. And we have one in the back right now.
Hi. This fits in with what you said about the rule of law, and I have to disagree with you. I think this is the most important time to civil disobedience. You can't necessarily spend time in jail. Always on notice. But what I have called your office and I said, have you asked to have Elon Musk subpoenaed? And yes, we did.
We did.
But are you doing it hourly? Are you annoying them? Are you dropping down the paperwork? And the reason I say this is it's online, the 1947 CIA handbook on how to undermine Donald Trump's government. It's like it was made for it. And I got the personal experience from this last year at work. If you get people together and you practice malicious compliance, you can make things happen. And I'm asking you to please be maliciously compliant. And
Don't obey in advance!
Also, I have to say this, Jeffrey Hakeem has disappointed me to my bones when he said there's nothing wrong.
Thank you. We have had many conversations with oversight committee members. That's the committee that I sit on, where we have subpoenaed Elon Musk. We have talked about what the right rhythm is, how to do it in a way that is effective. and that does not become easily ignorable. And I think that those are the balance that, reasonable people can disagree on. And there are certainly some of us who want to be more active, more in their face, more maliciously non-compliant, right? We have also had lots of discussions in caucus and in small group listening sessions to share what we are hearing with leadership. And I want to, I was in leadership in a chamber of many fewer people, and it's hard to get everyone on the same page, even with 30 Democrats, right? We are a big tent, we all have lots of ideas, and everyone represents a different district, and we're independent, and we don't answer to one person. It's not the way our party works. But yesterday, Leader Jeffries sent a letter to colleagues drawing a clear red line for the continuing resolution. We are not giving them votes for a continuing resolution that gives more and more payouts to billionaires like Elon Musk. And I want to thank all of you for using your voices here today and on the phones, because it matters. Showing that this is the will of the people matters. Because I do not take letting the Republicans shut the government down lightly. We live in a community with 27,000 federal workers. I remember the shutdown in the 90s when my dad was furloughed. We all know what it means for our community especially. But I think these are unprecedented times where we have to stand strong for our neighbors who depend on programs like Medicaid to stay alive.
Good morning, and thank you for being here. As you can see, there's a upwelling of grassroots movements. And I want to offer a tool that I think is grossly underutilized. I've contacted your office, the Senator's office, our state and local representatives, and the Pierce County Democratic office. And nobody has a clearinghouse that will tell us where there are marches, rallies, and protests.
Woo!
And I think if there were such a site that would gather those types of events and then disseminate that or allow us to tap into that, you would see 10 times this many people showing up. And so I guess the question is, are there any efforts to increase that sort of information?
Thank you so much. There are legal rules for what I say to you using official staff resources, wearing my official congresswoman hat here in this building that we're renting with taxpayer dollars. So I will say that is not a service that we can provide in this capacity. But I think there are probably efforts that folks in this audience know about. And I've heard that there is a National Day of Action on April 5th. So that is a date that folks can Google to find the resources to get involved.
Can you put this out on social media then?
Not in this capacity, no. Yeah.
So my question is a little bit more information about the budget and also any debt ceilings. I think that anything the Democrats
agree to, because they're so short on the votes on the Republican side, needs to be short-term, to keep them on a short leash. And some of the safeguards you mentioned, but also for kids and education, public safety, and making sure that our data privacy is protected, and that they're basically following the rule of law. So I don't know how you incorporate that in, but I think very short term, if the Democrats have to help the Republicans to pass anything, any more comments?
Thank you. So there, just today, the Republicans released text of their continuing resolution that they are calling a clean continuing resolution. Given that it's 90 pages and it seems to eliminate some programs, we don't believe them. So, like, the staff is reviewing to make sure that we understand what this CR does and doesn't do, but I'll just reemphasize that Medicaid and Social Security are two big red lines, but for me, I believe that if we are going to talk about a clean continuing resolution, that it should be short-term, that we should leave time to negotiate, that we should demand protections from Elon Musk's dangerous behavior and activity. And that is what our leadership, including Rosa DeLauro from the House side and Patty Murray from the Senate side, have been saying at the table for months.
Congresswoman, can you take some questions from the staff there next to you?
Sure. Let's see. What actions are you taking to prevent privatization of Social Security, Veterans Administration, NOAA, National Weather Service, etc.? So I think right now what we are doing is not giving, like the particular action is not giving them votes on a resolution that will undermine those programs that we depend on. And what their playbook is, which is what was in the Project 2025 playbook, is to undermine our agencies and institutions so that they can privatize them. We have had a handful of oversight committee hearings this session, and that theoretically that is the committee that has real oversight powers, in the name, over our federal agencies and the actions of this administration. We had, the Republicans get to decide what the committee hearing subjects are and who comes before the committee. The minority party gets one expert witness to testify. But we are each empowered with our own 5-minute line of questioning to ask whatever we want or to say whatever we want. And we had a committee hearing that was about work from home policies, in which we had to listen to my Republican colleagues talk about people who were like in the pool while they were at work, who were, doing like nonsense. Nonsense. And so I read an email from one of our constituents who is a federal worker, who is a veteran, who has been working hard to deliver results for our community and our country and their family. And that is one of my biggest powers right now, telling stories of people who are impacted. Because what we are not seeing is the pressure in many districts across the country from constituents. Well, there may be pressure because they're not doing town halls. But we are getting 19,000 calls and emails in 3 weeks, but I don't think every member who is not standing up against these dangerous actions is getting the same pressure. So one of the ways that we can help is by telling your stories. We've been soliciting stories of impact from folks who work for federal agencies, who depend on federal agencies. We've been sharing those stories in committee, on social media, with the news. We've connected folks with some constituents who are willing to go on record. And we are going to keep doing that. We're going to keep looking for more ways to do that. We're gonna try to ramp up our media outreach as much as possible. And if you know people from like classmates from kindergarten, former co-workers, family members, anyone you would like say hi to at the grocery store, if you ran into them, if you know people who live in districts where their members are not standing up against this dangerous attack on our government, on our democracy, on our agencies, on our communities, call them and ask them to call their representatives too. That's like my big ask. So we do some old-fashioned organizing, person to person, phone tree, to keep the pressure up. Okay.
We do one more.
One more from the, okay. Will you only support a tax bill that expands the child care tax credit to more families living on low-wage jobs and oppose any efforts to cut child tax credit expansion? Yes, I will oppose any efforts to cut child tax credit expansion, and I think we're far away from a tax bill right now because we are working to push back against this dangerous continuing resolution. I know they're coming with it. We know they have the votes to do most of the things that they want to do in the House, but I will work to ensure that my colleagues stay united and that we continue to keep the pressure on folks who might be persuadable.
Well, the law tells us that civil disobedience is two words. It's civil, which of course we want to be, but it's also disobedience. And we have to show that we can do that we can stand up in front of people and take what we deserve. And things like showing up at the Tesla dealer and showing up at the courthouse and showing up at places where we crowd the parking lots and literally disobey the parking rules and stuff. That's important, and I think people need to remember that that's important.
Thank you. Yes. This is something that I really want to emphasize, and I have said before that like Congress cannot save us, and I think that that's really simplistic and scary for a lot of people. But what I mean is, it takes all of us to save us. It takes all of us to participate. It takes all of us to show up. It takes all of us to keep using our voices, and that's why I am so glad you are here right now and continuing to show up. And in the back, and then we've got some hands up here in the front. Yeah. Oh.
Hi, I'm a state worker, and I definitely, of course, am upset about what is going on with the government. I'm also upset in regards to what is happening in the state of Washington. I've now gone through this will be, if we end up doing a furlough, state workers, this will be my third one. And this one is going to be more furlough days than the other two. My concern is with Orange Face, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, Orange Face, going to go after the states who are not willing to bow down to him, but instead, fighting. But when you take away our federal grants, our children, our cancer research here in the state of Washington, our federal workers, I'm sorry, state workers,
Yeah.
we are being punished.
Yeah.
And we're already in a deficit. So my question is that what does the state of Washington have in their toolbox, which is now being used a lot, in their toolbox, to be able to fight against the loss and to not make us have to totally, go to helpline all the time, go to whatever.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So my first term in the Senate was under the first Trump administration. And we had just retaken the majority in the state Senate, and because we were able to pass a lot of protections for people. Civil rights protections, healthcare expansion, and the state is not in a position to make up for the massive end to funding that we will be experiencing if Medicaid is cut. If they cut $880 billion in Medicaid budget, if they put per capita caps, which basically means you're only worth X amount of money, and then that's it. If you are sicker, we don't care. That's what they're proposing when they're proposing ending Medicaid waste, fraud, and abuse. I can't sugarcoat the fact that the state will be in a significant amount of pain if we lose the federal funding that matches state dollars for programs like Medicaid, for programs like Head Start, for programs that we rely on, the Department of Veteran Affairs, education. That's why we have EPA. Yeah, we have to keep fighting. There are so many ways that we will be injured, that we will lose lives, that we will be dragged backwards if we are not able to fight back against their scheme to take money away from people and to give it in tax breaks to billionaires. And I wish I had a better answer for you, but that's just the reality. Yeah. Okay, one up here and then come down in the front, James.
Yes, I wanted to speak to your emphasis on impacts. Yeah. But I want to preface it by saying thank you for being willing to be a federal an elected official. It's probably the hardest time in the history of our lives to be an elected official and to be in a system where the rules no longer apply, so how do you fight back? We're all struggling with that question. But impacts. I was a federal employee for many years. Very proud of it, loved my career, loved being part of the federal government. This word impact I think is really important. I think stories are great, but they're not enough. We need to have people, and if the Democratic establishment and Congress can't do it, there must be not-for-profit organizations and foundations out there can help us. We need to be constantly collecting data on the impacts, the consequences. How many people are being pushed out of nursing homes? How many people can't pay their mortgages? How many people? We need these numbers to be able to convince Republicans. This is another thing I want to say. There must be 2 or 3 reasonable Republicans whose constituents are going to be impacted significantly too. But they need
every single one of them.
They need to see how. Yeah. How. And just telling a story from your district, while it's illustrative, I get that. But how are the consequences? We need to focus on the consequences of all these draconian measures. Yeah. Not just we need to pull them together. My second point is, Project 2025 was what, 10 years in the making at least? Where are the nonprofit think tanks that are working to help Democrats come up with a new strategy, new messaging, new ideas for how we can unite people? And not just focus on LGBTQ or veterans or what, but focus on the whole thing. What's happening to the well-being of Americans and the future of Americans.
So I'm going to push back a little bit on this idea that Republicans don't know what the impact will be on their district. I know, you say that we need data, and there is data. And we have the Democratic Budget Committee has a microsite that we will share on our social media that is particularly by Medicaid. You can search by state, you can search by district, the number of people that will be impacted, that will lose their health care, and some other information. We will share that out so that you have that if you are calling, especially people you know in districts where their members are not standing up against these cuts, who are voting for a budget resolution that cuts $880 billion from Medicaid. To your point about 1, 2, 3 patriots, which is really what we need. We need just a few votes to stop this madness. We need just a few votes to ensure that any budget resolution, any continuing resolution, anything that we pass doesn't tear away the programs from people who rely on them. When the budget resolution was introduced Tuesday before last, there were 3 bills that were introduced on that, or that were coming up for a vote on the House floor. The budget resolution was scheduled to be number 2 of those 3. We voted on the first one, we skipped the budget resolution, and we voted on the third one, and then they sent everyone home. And it was because they didn't have the votes at that moment. Because they had folks who had questions, who had qualms, who knew that their districts would be impacted, who knew that they didn't want to vote for cutting Medicaid. But in a matter of minutes, after we had left the House floor, something happened. And I don't know, who was making calls. I don't know what Trump said on the phone to people. I don't know what Elon Musk said. I don't know what those conversations looked like. But I know that all of a sudden they had the votes. And what I'm saying here is that it is a dangerous time to go against the leadership of the Republican Party. So what we have to do is communicate with people in districts where they have leadership that are not standing up for their constituents. And because it's easy for them to ignore if all of us are calling them, right? If all of us are saying, we need you to vote this way, we need you to vote that way. Let's say, what's your zip code? Are you a constituent? Because we have to parse through who we listen to. And I think it looks like showing up at town halls with an empty chair, if folks have to, showing that we've seen that before in the past. These empty chair town halls are powerful. It looks like people in the streets and, in rallies in front of office buildings. It looks like using our voices in every single way that we can. Yes, we need the data. We have the data. It is not true that they don't have the data. But we have to get people that they care about to push on them. I just want one quick anecdote. In the state Senate, we had a bill that was, creating more protections for trans students who are being bullied in their schools. We see this high suicidality rate for kids who are facing such challenges, sometimes in their homes and in the classrooms. We expected this bill to be a party line vote. But the wife of a member of the Republican Party read an op-ed in their local paper from a family to whom this bill was really important. And because of a conversation that they had, he voted for the bill. These are the ways that we are able to put pressure on people. And I wish that it was data only, that the numbers would cause them to vote the way that we want, but it is not, in my experience, the case. Thank you. One in the front here, and then we'll come to the side.
Hi, Congresswoman. My question is about vaccinations. With the confirmation of RFP Jr. and this debunked autism vaccine research that's been resurfacing, I've been really concerned. I have a 3-year-old and another baby on the way in 2 months. So I'm just wondering what the conversations have been like between you and your colleagues about our right to vaccinate being in jeopardy, and if you feel that it is in jeopardy, what can you do to push back against it?
Thank you. So I think one of the things that we are relying on here is policy of the state of Washington, that we have strong vaccine protections in our public schools especially. We saw the measles outbreak. We saw the impacts that had on Southwest Washington, when we had high concentrations of unvaccinated kids. And we know the science, right, that it is not true that there's this correlation between autism and vaccines. Yesterday, there was a March for Science in Seattle. I didn't see it beforehand, but I saw, including the president of the Washington State Nurses Association, Justin Gill, who used to live in Gig Harbor, that they are showing up to push for science-based policy. Washington State believes in science-based healthcare policy. I think one of the dangers that we have right now, to the point about what happens when state funding is gutted, is that much of our state funding for childhood vaccines, so that families can afford them, so that kids on CHIP, Children's Healthcare Plan, can afford them, is funded by federal dollars. And so I think that is where we will be impacted. We here in Washington will be especially impacted, is if we lose those federal dollars. Yeah.
Congressman, can we do a couple of questions from the stack there?
Okay.
The written questions.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'm over here.
Okay. What is being done to prevent the Voter Suppression SAVE Act from becoming law? Yeah, I want to say that it's in quotes, which it should be if we're going to talk about the SAVE Act. Right? It is voter suppression. And we've worked really hard here in Washington State to be expanding the right to vote, to ensure that folks are protected, to increase the number of ballot drop boxes, to strengthen our security of our voted by mail system. And we saw, these efforts to privatize the Postal Service and to pass the SAVE Act to disenfranchise people whose name does not exactly match their birth certificate. These are efforts to disenfranchise voters, to remove our right to vote that we have fought for in our community, in our state, and that folks have fought for over a century in this country. We are going to need the support of the Senate to fight back against this too. And so I'll say, I'm sure that everyone in this room is also calling their members of the Senate. We just need 3. We just need 3. And this is important. And I think the message that especially hits women is a message that is persuasive to some Republicans. That women who have changed their name when they get married will be unable to vote is a message that crosses party lines.
Hi, my first time doing one of these. So
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. So I kind of wanted to reinforce what that fine woman had kind of mentioned early on. I've kind of noticed that you mentioned about how there's you have a minority. You're asking us to kind of get out there and organize and support you guys, but there's rules that bind you. However, there's kind of actually a way to function in a minority position, and I've seen the Republicans do this quite well, and I've seen the MAGA movement do this quite well. And that's messaging. It's just being loud. It's being aggressive. Now, you may have a minority position right now, but any representative can get up there and be loud. Why do I know Marjorie Taylor Greene? Why do I know half of these MAGA people? They went against their party leadership and changed the party by just being loud and annoying. Why is it only in the Democratic Party trying to people that are ostracized? The only Democrats I hear about are people ostracized by that party, people on the left, people like Bernie, people like AOC. You as a representative, I want to know, what can you do to just be loud, to be heard, because you have that power. So what was your plan there? Because we need messages. We can't organize without leadership, and you are a leader. So what can you do?
Thank you. So I think I want to reaffirm that you are right, that our messaging is our strongest tool right now.
Well, about the leadership in the Democratic Party right now. I've seen the most feckless, watered down.
So I'm going to ask you to not yell because we have a lot of people. I know you're frustrated, I know. We are definitely having those conversations in caucus. We're definitely pushing back. We're definitely talking. I want to say that at the State of the Union, I proudly voted against the Senator on Al Green. I'm very proud of the way he stood up. There were a lot of other people yelling and pushing back against the lies, and they don't always get covered by the cameras, they don't always get caught, you don't always hear them. So, we go out and I did a little like social media video when I walked out to talk about why I walked out, to talk about what the moment in the speech was that made me do that. And that we are looking for all those tools. We're talking to podcasters about being, in places where people are getting their news outside of the legacy media. I think we've got some news folks in the crowd today. There were some yesterday. And I have a communications director that's working really hard to build more relationships with media. I do think there are messages that serve two distinct purposes, and you can't say the same thing in the same way and expect them to do both. One is moving votes in the House, and one is giving mirroring the rage in this room and giving people actionable civil disobedience. Those are two different messages, and I'm living between the two right now and trying to figure out when one works and when the other works. And I just want to say that we can rally people in the streets. We can create solidarity amongst people who already believe what we believe, and we can work to change people's minds. And those take two different tactics. And I think we need both of them. And we need folks who will, in Congress, who will target both of those things. We need to be able to code switch, right? To talk to people differently, to meet people where they are, to move forward in every way we can. But I want to share that has been a personal challenge for me. Like, where is it that people expect me to perform their rage? And I don't say perform in like a pejorative way, I just mean that's what people want. They want to see us angry, they want to see that they are not alone, they want to see that we're in this together. And at the same time, as we try to find 3 patriots to stand up against policy, it's not our rage that will change them. So that we're just holding that tension. And it's, we're gonna let one person down when we go farther in the other way, and let somebody else down when we go farther in the other way. And I know that that's not satisfying, but I'm just trying to be very transparent with you about where I am.
I hope to hear more of you on the news.
Hi, I just want to say thanks for having us, and I just want to share more of a comment. So, I am a Bremerton native, second generation shipyard employee, on the first lines as a woman supervisor, and inside those walls is incredibly brutal right now. And I am fielding my employees who are scared to file for FEMLA because of everything that's going on. I have employees that we don't know what's going on with these 5 things you did last week emails.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane in there, right? And I'm on the front lines remaining neutral because I have to. And I led ERG, and that was ripped apart for me, and it has been incredibly painful. They want to take words like women and disabilities and things like that out of our language. And so I just wanted I'm inside on the front lines doing as much as I can, and I want to implore you to do as much as you can on the outside. Because I can't. And so I'm going to put you in and shut that shit down.
While James makes their way into the wings, can we use the 25th Amendment to remove Trump from office? Not without the votes. Okay. Hi, can we all be quiet?
I just wanted
So, thank you for coming to the town hall and for asking your question. My mom has been an educator for about 23 years, a special ed para-educator at South Kitsap High School. And I feel so grateful every day that I get to represent so many of my teachers from my time growing up here and graduated from South Kitsap School District. And, you know, it has been my honor to work on education issues since I have been elected. To chair the Higher Ed and Workforce Development Committee, to get to work with incredible students of all ages on envisioning and building towards a better education system for all of us. What I thought that I might fight for when I got to DC was expansion to the IDEA funding that helps support special ed in our schools. That we would work on loan forgiveness, that we would ensure that our community and technical colleges had all the resources that they needed in order to meet students where they are and serve folks of all ages, to build the pathway towards opportunity for all of us. But we are seeing wholesale attacks on the Department of Education's ability to exist right now. So we're not able to fight for more funding like we need. We are fighting to ensure that the system that distributes funding right now remains. You know, folks have had, I'm sure for some people in this room, their income-based repayment programs turned off for their loans. We are seeing Head Start, early learning programs threatened of loss of funding. And it is scary for all of us. And I just want to say to this incredible young person who is so brave to ask their question in front of this big, loud group of people, that you deserve a better future. You deserve a future in which we all show you that we value your education and that we want you to have every tool you need to succeed. And we are going to fight for that.
Hi, my name is Joe. I'm nervous, so I'm going to shake. I'm a trauma therapist, and so I see a lot of abusers and the results of. And like many abusers do, Trump sees himself as a king. He violates the Constitution, he disobeys judicial orders, he commits perjury, like the whole head of Doge thing. Anything Congress does in good faith is doomed for failure because of this and because of loyalists and the spectacle he puts on, the spectacle of control. He's a bully, and any performative protest that doesn't actually make change isn't going to work. I want to know how you and your colleagues plan to use actual outrage to fight fire with fire, and I want to remind you that when we think of the civil rights movement, not just the successful aftermath, but what we think of are the bloody and horrifying images of the fight for our rights. So how do you plan to get, metaphorically bloody, to force them to show their hand on a scale that the nation has to see it, like Al Green tried to, and you guys tried to? How do you make it so big that people can't look away from how horrified they are?
Yesterday was the 60th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, and a lot of my colleagues are in Selma this weekend, making that march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and celebrating the legacy of John Lewis and so many people who put their lives on the line for our right to vote.
Good trouble.
Looking at those photos, we see kids and elders and educators, college students. It's not just elected officials they're putting the pressure on. And I'm not trying to shirk any duty and responsibility, but I just want to underscore the fact that that kind of good trouble takes all of us, that it is not the voices of Congress alone, which are by and large, even outside of this situation, very untrustworthy in polls among American people. It is not Congress that changes regular people's minds. But yes, it is our responsibility to keep pushing. to be loud where we need to be loud, to be nuanced when nuance is the way that we move people, that we move votes. What you may not have seen, if you watched any of the joint congressional address on last Tuesday, was that the silence and the people sitting in seats got under our president's skin. And you could tell that he would go off teleprompter that he was unnerved by the fact that he did not have a packed audience of people giving standing ovation after standing ovation. And when he pointed that out and he said, I can do nothing to make this side happy, J.D. Vance stood behind him and did this. I know it doesn't feel like enough, but what we do know is that if we didn't show up to the State of the Union, they would fill all the seats with Republican staffers who would have given a standing ovation on every line. So I know that we're frustrated by pink and signs, but like amongst the tools that we had, we made the decision that felt like the right one at the time, and we will keep recalculating and we will keep looking for new ways to not just get under their skin, but to really, really keep the pressure on. And I think communications tools are a big part of that, how we share your stories and how you help share your stories, not just with us, but with the media, with your friends, with your neighbors, with your book club that's never political, right? Like with we have to put it all on the line right now. And so just thank you.
Congresswoman, we have one last question to you left here,
Okay.
and then final statements.
Okay.
Hi, so I actually want to address you guys and more so unless Congresswoman was respectfully named. I hear a lot of you guys asking her what they're doing in Congress level and what they're really doing, but I really want you guys to understand that disrupting your own, your friends, everyone has someone who they know who voted for Trump, and the same energy and gusto that you want her to have, I believe that you guys need to have that with those people as well. She said that Congress can't be the one to save us, and I understand that. I understand that, yes, technically they can help us, but it really is going to be us. It's going to be you guys talking to that coworker that you love to hang out with, love to have drinks with, but we don't talk about politics because we don't want it to get dicey. Talk to them about it because this is our lives. You have a really great relationship with, but once again, you don't talk about politics because you know where they stand. I know where you stand, and we're going to talk about this. Talk to your people. Talk to your peers.
I want to thank you all for asking hard questions, for showing up, and for capturing that rage you feel and turning it into action. That's what I will always remember from the day after the 2016 election when I worked at Planned Parenthood. Cecile Richards led us in an all-staff call. And she said, we are in this cycle of grief, and the only way out is to catch ourselves in anger and to turn it into action. And you're doing that today, and I need us all to keep doing it, to keep the pressure on, to keep ensuring that we are doing everything we can to defend our democracy and our future. And I'm so grateful to you. I'm so grateful to get to represent this community. And I feel honored to bring your stories with me every week to DC, and we'll look for more opportunities to continue to be in dialogue with each other, to share resources, to share support. And we are going to try to answer as many of these questions as we can, like in social media videos, to share, so that you know that you didn't just write it on a piece of paper to lose it. We want to continue keeping you informed to the best of our abilities, and I'm so grateful to all of you. Thank you so much.